Today, Sean O'Malley beats the dog out of the dog that is Cheeto Vera. And Dustin Poirier makes French fries out of Benoit Saint Denis. And what about Michael Venom Page, the snake that couldn't be snake charmed by Kevin Holland? And y'all must have forgot about Piotr Jan. And what about Jack Della and how he dealt deadly hands to Gilbert Burns? All of this and more about UFC 299, which is a card so big that we're having to split this in 2 episodes on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back in it. It's your boy Matt, back after UFC 299, and we here to go over the news. First off, like I said at the top, this is going to be 2 different episodes. First, we're going to cover the main card, and then I'm going to do another episode where we're going to cover all of the prelims, because that's how good and how big this show was. Because I really feel like UFC 299 delivered. There's a lot of cards the UFC puts together that we're all like, oh, this is going to be the greatest card in the world. But at the end of the day, we usually get let down because you just can't have good things in MMA. But UFC 299 broke that code. And it was a card that we were all excited about, and it delivered with the excitement. So let's start off with the top of the card. The main event, Sean O'Malley goes out there and defends his Bantamweight Championship against Cheeto Marlon Vera. Bro, here's the thing, man. And I know I always start up like that, but I'm starting up like that again. Sean O'Malley went out there and put on a striking clinic. Now, I will say up front, I like Sean O'Malley early in his career, but after he took the L to Cheeto the first time, Sean O'Malley just didn't really, he didn't rub me the right way no more. You know what I'm saying? Pause. But he didn't. And it was like, I just didn't really like the dude. I didn't like his social media presence. I didn't like his podcast. I didn't like when he would go on other people's podcasts. I just didn't really like the dude. He wasn't my cup of tea. Now, I kept thinking eventually O'Malley's going to run into a dog and they're going to beat everything out of him. And the real O'Malley, who I thought I knew, is going to show. Because I've been thinking this whole time O'Malley's kind of soft. O'Malley's kind of weird guy, whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter. What I saw on Saturday night is what's been building this whole time in his career, as I spoke about in my pre-fight breakdown that I did last week. Every time that you feel like Sean O'Malley is going to lose, every time an opponent comes up that you're like, this is the guy that O'Malley will not beat. This is the guy that will humble Sean O'Malley. It's never happened. Hey, y'all, did it happen? No, it never happens. So, with that being said, after watching him go out there and beat the dog out of the dog that is Cheeto Vera, bro, I'm just going to say Sean O'Malley is that dude. He's that dude, man. Every time he's gone out there and he's supposed to lose to somebody, he's never lost to him. He's never lost to him. You know, bro, he went out there. Here's the thing. Let's just get right to the knee hurt round the world. 1:25 seconds left on the clock in the second round. What you see here, Cheeto lacked the footwork to be able to get into a comfortable range with Sean O'Malley to implement his offense. Cheeto just doesn't have that type of footwork. Cheeto at times is going to wade into the pocket or he's going to plot into the pocket, right? That's just how he fights. That is not enough footwork is what we saw on Saturday night for a guy of Sean O'Malley's striking caliber. It's just not good enough. So Cheeto could never get in range to use his own offense. And Sean O'Malley was jabbing and boxing his face off and using devastating body kicks. Every now and then he would throw high kicks in there just to throw Cheeto off. So Cheeto was constantly shelling up. Cheeto was shelling up like this to try to block these jabs that are tearing his cheekbones apart. You know what I'm saying? So here's the thing. Because he's shelling up, trying to go into the pocket to implement his own strikes against O'Malley, O'Malley notices this, and at 1:25 left in the second round, because Cheeto's going like this and he dips his head forward, O'Malley, wham, catches Cheeto with a knee that would have dented a Ford Escort. You know what I'm talking about? He hits Cheeto Vera with a knee that would have left a dent in the garage door of someone's house. This man delivered a knee that would have literally buckled and folded any lesser of a man. Would have just cracked, it did crack Cheeto's face, but it would have literally laid a lesser of a man out. So shout out to Cheeto Vera for having the cojones and the dog in him to stay with it. He hits him with this knee and Cheeto just eats it. He wobbles back, but he's still in the fight. Cheeto just ate it. And the fight continues on. At that point, for the rest of the fight, that was O'Malley's read. So basically, he would keep boxing Cheeto's face off. Bing, bing, bing. He's boxing his face off. And then what would end up happening is Cheeto would shell up and then O'Malley would dig deep to the body with like an uppercut to the body, a hook to the body, or a body kick. And this was the rest of the fight. And O'Malley put on a clinic, a full-blown clinic. This wasn't a free clinic either. You know what I'm saying? This wasn't a free clinic. This was a clinic that's in the nice end of your city. Whatever city that you live in, if you're watching this video, whatever city you live in, the clinic that's in the nice area of your city, that was the clinic that Sean O'Malley put on. It was a rich clinic. It was a wealthy clinic. You know what I'm saying? You can't just roll in off the street with no money, no insurance, and get this type of medical attention is what I'm saying. Bro, Sean O'Malley did his thing. So shout out to him. He goes out there, he puts on this clinic, he defeats Cheeto Marlon Vera via 5-round decision. And that was it, man. What a performance. You know, they won fight of the night. Sean O'Malley won performance of the night. This card was actually so good, now that I'm thinking about it, Dana White said that anybody that got a finish on this card received $50,000. With the exception of guys like Sean O'Malley, with the exception of Dustin Poirier, who we're going to get into next, who got a performance of the night bonus, so they didn't give him the extra 50. That's how good this card was. Everyone that finished somebody, here's 50 grand. We don't even care. Here, take it. Get out of our hair. We thank you for putting on this card. You know what I'm saying? What a tremendous main event. I mean, the type of striking that Sean O'Malley was doing was truly amazing. This wasn't point fighting. This wasn't jab, jab, back up. This wasn't point fighting. He was trying to get Cheeto out of there. Cheeto's just too tough, man. He's just a dog in there. So shout out to the Ecuadorian Cheeto Marlon Vera. We all know he'll be back. He'll regroup. He'll be back. And Sean O'Malley moves forward. After he wins the fight, in the post-fight speech, he calls out Ilia Topuria and says that if he has to, he'll go out there and he'll fight Merab. At the post-fight press conference, Dana White didn't really seem to be too into the Topuria fight necessarily. So, you know, I'm kind of looking at, I think that more than likely, Sean O'Malley's next fight will be against Merab. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see how that goes for O'Malley. But shout out to him. He goes out there, gets an amazing win in the main event over Cheeto Vera. Next, in the co-main event, we have Dustin Poirier goes out there and shows why he definitely has tested positive for that dog being in him. And he goes out there and he defeats Benoit Saint Denis, a young buzzsaw in the division. Bro, what a fight. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Earlier last week, Benoit Saint Denis was cited with a marking on his forehead that erupted all over the internet as he had staph infection. Then when he goes to the pre-fight press conference, coincidentally he's wearing a hat that covers up his forehead. After the fight is over, Benoit Saint Denis said that he was on antibiotics and he was recovering from some sort of an infection or an ailment. He didn't confirm that the marking that everyone saw on his forehead was staph, but at the same time, when there's smoke, there's fire. You know what I'm saying? If homie said he was on antibiotics because he had a bad infection, then 9 times out of 10 it was because of that staph he had on his forehead. Bro, nevertheless, from what I saw, Benoit Saint Denis went out there and put it on Dustin in the first round. And I really believe he poured everything out. That's probably why he started so quick and he buzzsawed his way at Dustin. Because he probably knew I've only got about a round and a half's cardio in me because I'm on God knows what antibiotics to try to get better. So, with that being said, bro, he goes out there. He's landing shots on Dustin in the first round, but primarily he's grappling Dustin. They're scrambling a little bit because Dustin ain't no joke on the ground, of course. But Benoit is going for chokes. He is trying desperately to get Dustin out of there. Now, Dustin goes for at least two gillies in the first round, right? And we all know Dustin needs gillies, especially because John Anik made the point that even though everyone talks about how good Dustin's gilly is, he's never won by gilly, according to John Anik. So, you know, this was very interesting because he keeps going for this gilly in times when he might have the chance to stand up. And of course, Benoit just rides it out, pops his head out, and continues his onslaught. And it's just like, Dustin, stop going for the gilly, bro. First round, Dustin definitely loses, right? He goes back to his corner. His corner tells him, leave the gilly alone. Stop the gilly. We don't need the guillotine. Stop that. We don't want that, okay? Just stop trying to jump that. We don't need that. Dustin seems like he's with it, seems like he's in it. Bro, they go out there in the second round. And in the second round, Benoit is still going at Dustin, but he's slightly slower. So at one point, the fight goes to the ground again. Benoit Saint Denis is trying to cinch up a choke, right? And he mounts Dustin. Eventually, they scramble. He takes Dustin's back, and they end up to where he's got Dustin's back fighting for the choke. Benoit Saint Denis' back is up against the cage, and Dustin is resting on top of him, and he's trying to cinch in the choke. Dustin then scrambles, reverses it, gets out of it, and stands up. Okay, now they're standing. This is when Dustin does something so key to this fight. And when Benoit Saint Denis saw this, he probably should have tapped. He probably should have dropped to one knee and tapped on the ground because at this point, the fight was over. Dustin Poirier adjusted the shorts. If you're a Dustin fan, you know. If you're an El Diamante fan, you know what I'm talking about. He adjusted the shorts, pulled them up kind of over his knee, and kind of went into that Dustin shell position. And bro, from that point, he starts laying hands on Benoit. He's laying hands on him. But Benoit's kind of covering up, still moving. But you can tell now by the return strikes that Benoit is throwing that he's getting tired. He's getting tired now, okay? So they're kind of scrambling. They're kind of fighting on the feet. And Dustin lands a few right body shots to Benoit Saint Denis. A few body shots. And he lands the last right body shot. And then Dustin wobbles, drops, stumbles, whatever you want to say. Because Benoit kind of dropped to the ground for a moment and then popped right back up. Dustin catches him with a devastating left hand, drops Benoit. Benoit scrambles back to his feet. They kind of go back and forth a little bit. Benoit is in a bad way though, and Dustin catches Benoit Saint Denis with the right hook from Hades. You know what I'm saying? Catches him with a right hook. He caught him with a right hook that probably would have hurt Francis Ngannou. You know what I'm saying? It was a right hook. You know what I'm saying? It was a dastardly right hook. When he caught Benoit with that right hook, Benoit drops to the ground. Dustin delivers one more right hand on top of him. The fight gets waved off, and El Diamante is your winner. Shout out to Dustin. Shout out to him for taking on this young buzzsaw in the division, for taking on a fight that he didn't have to take on. Everyone's always making fun of Dustin for being a placeholder and kind of clogging up the division and holding on to his ranking. Shout out to him for going down in the rankings, fighting an up and coming contender, returning the favors he spoke about. Eddie Alvarez gave Dustin his chance when he was trying to elevate in the division, and Dustin gave Benoit that chance, and Dustin went out there and did work. Shout out to him. We'll see where he goes from here. I mean, by all accounts, he definitely could have put himself in line for a title shot for sure against Islam Makhachev. So we're going to see how that plays out. But shout out to Dustin. He goes out there. He gets the major win. It was an outstanding fight. Shout out to Benoit Saint Denis, because we all know he'll be back. I mean, who knows what would have happened had he not been weakened by those antibiotics. But at the same time, Dustin goes out there and gets the win. Let's move on. Next, we have Kevin Holland steps in the octagon with MVP Michael Venom Page. Great fight. Great fight. Basically, man, MVP, you could tell his striking was a little bit off. He even admitted that, the octagon jitters, the dreaded octagon jitters for first-time fighters in the UFC kind of got to him. He did have some devastating strikes that Kevin Holland took. Shout out to Kevin Holland for the chin that man displayed. But nevertheless, MVP goes out there, gets the decision win over Kevin Holland. Not a lot to say, man. I mean, MVP did his thing. It was definitely a good showing for his first fight in the UFC. From what I saw, though, about halfway through the second round, Kevin Holland just kind of basically gave up. And I'm not saying that, he wasn't still trying to win the fight. But at that point, Kevin Holland, he just didn't have the footwork. He didn't have the approach to try to get in on MVP and try to implement any sort of damage to him. You know what I'm saying? At about halfway through the second round, at that point, Kevin Holland was just kind of a sitting duck. And he was just kind of staying at MVP's range, allowing MVP to dart in and deliver these devastating right hands to Kevin Holland. Sometimes, devastating elbows, spinning elbows. Of course, MVP was still doing his thing with the kicks. But Kevin Holland just had nothing for him. Looked like he kind of gave up about halfway through the second round. But he still got that dog in him as well. So at the same time, he wasn't just going to lay out. But you could kind of tell he just didn't really know how to go from there to try to defeat MVP. So MVP goes out there, gets the win. We'll see where he goes from this point. He seemed to be very humble in victory. Said he needs some work before he tries to go after the belt. But he's definitely going to be back in the gym doing his thing. So we'll see where he goes from there. But shout out to MVP. The snake charmer that is Kevin Holland could not charm that snake. So shout out to MVP. He goes out there, he gets a win in his UFC debut. Next, we had Jack Della. Jack Della Maddalena goes out there and defeats Gilbert Burns. Outstanding fight, bro. First round, I would give to Jack Della. First round, I believe that Jack Della, it wasn't a ton of damage done, but Jack Della had great jabs he was implementing against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert just didn't really do a lot in the first round, in my opinion. Second round, Gilbert took over. Gilbert started working a little bit more on his grappling. Shout out to Jack Della, who had really good. Jack Della is really good in scrambles, extremely good in scrambles, to where Gilbert never really. He never really had Jack Della in any real true danger of being submitted. I mean, Jack Della is just one of these guys where some of his scrambles he would go for, some of his escapes he would go for were ill-advised. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, Jack, bro, JDM, what are you doing, bro? There was definitely some moments like that. But at the same time, man, that second round, Gilbert started to go out there and do his thing. And it was looking like the old Gilbert was reemerging. And, we were about to see something. You know what I'm saying? He was definitely getting the better of the exchanges with Jack, but Jack stayed calm, collected. You could tell that he was still in it. Third round, at the beginning of the third round, Gilbert is still doing his thing, but eventually Jack got to that chin. Jack drops him. Jack gets on top of him, starts delivering devastating ground and pound. Devastating ground and pound to Gilbert. The referee, who we found out low-key that Gilbert Burns owed that referee money. So that was why that referee was willing to let him get beat within an inch of his life before he was ready to stop the fight. Maybe that's just me who found out that news, but that's what I choose to believe. Because that referee did not want to call off the fight. Poor Gilbert just getting beaten. He done got his fro beat out the braids, you know what I'm saying, on the ground. Jack Della's doing work. That referee just let it keep going. But nevertheless, eventually, he stops the fight. Jack Della wins. Shout out to him. He makes a tremendous call out of Shavkat Rakhmonov. So that would be an outstanding fight to see. From what I saw yesterday on the internet, I believe Shavkat has accepted. So that would also be very interesting if the UFC goes ahead and makes that fight. Tremendous fight. That could definitely main event a fight card. Quit giving us these Jairzinho main events. Just, if y'all must, for one of your Apex cards, just make it Shavkat versus JDM. If you must for an Apex card. Regardless, put that on a major pay-per-view in front of an audience and let's see these two throw down. Shout out to JDM. He goes out there and gets the win, and I definitely want to see his fight against Shavkat. Let's move on. And finally, the last fight we're going to go over here today on the main card breakdown is, y'all must have forgot, Petr Yan, the James Bond villain himself, goes out there and gets a decision win over Song Yadong. Here's the thing, man. First round, Song Yadong went out there and didn't really put it on Petr, but at the same time, Song, in my opinion, definitely won round one. And you could see the now it wasn't as much as the commentary was saying. You could see that Yan was definitely worried about the takedown of Song. You could definitely see that. Song would keep feinting the takedown, and he was getting large reactions out of Petr Yan to try to react to scramble or block the takedown. But commentary was making out, DC and Joe Rogan were making out like every time, Song would act like he was going to shoot, like Yan was crying, like, oh my God. That was not what was going on. He was definitely addressing anytime Song seemed like he was going to go for a takedown. But I wouldn't say he was as worried about the takedown as commentary was saying. But definitely, I personally scored the first round for Song. Second round, Petr started to turn it up. Petr Yan's corner got on him bad in between the first and second round. And that second round, Petr reminded everyone what he does. And generally, if you're a Petr Yan fan and you watch a lot of his fights, you realize most of the time Petr goes out there and loses the first round. In most of his fights, championship fights or not, Petr generally goes out there and loses the first round. simply because Piotr goes out there and it's almost like he's taking inventory. If you're a fan of the fighting style of Floyd Mayweather, same thing. Similar to Anderson Silva, same thing. These type of guys usually go out there and don't do a lot in the first round because they're making reads. They're getting your timing down, they're figuring out how they're going to approach. That's your usual Jan fight. So I didn't really get why the commentary was kind of like, oh, God, Piotr Jan at one point, he was the man, but, Song is coming on. And it's like, bro, let's just chill. And I picked Song to win this fight. But I'm watching this and I'm like, let's not count out Piotr yet. Second round, here we go. And the James Bond villain, Piotr Jan, goes out there, does work in the second round. You could tell that Song was starting to get frustrated, that he didn't have the success that he had in the first. Then the third round, Piotr Jan did the same thing. Song definitely did get a few takedowns on Piotr, but Piotr was with it. Piotr even got a takedown, at least one, maybe two takedowns of his own. Nevertheless, at the end of this fight, Piotr gets his hand raised. You could tell that he was overwhelmed, not in an emotional way, but just overwhelmed that he was back in the win column. He was so happy. He was speaking English. He was talking to the fans in the crowd. You know what I'm saying? So that was awesome to see. Shout out to Piotr Jan. He bounces back. He gets a win over someone that we were definitely looking at like this guy could definitely be a contender for the Bantamweight Championship one day. Piotr goes out there, puts the halt on that, puts the kibosh on that, and now we're going to see where he goes from here. It'll be very interesting to see who the UFC chooses to match him up against. I mean, I'm pretty sure next in the Bantamweight division, either Merab or Corey Sandhagen is going to get the shot at the championship. So we'll see how that goes, to kind of see... because it's not like they're going to give Piotr a title shot. So I'm not sure who Jan is going to fight next. So we'll see who Jan fights next at Bantamweight. And we got to see how the title picture, shapes up. Because, you've got Merab waiting for a title shot. And you got Corey in there waiting for a title shot. So after all of that gets sealed, and they're definitely not going to sign Jan and Merab anytime soon. Jan's going to need another couple of wins to get right back where he needs to be, but shout out to him for going out there and getting that win. Regardless, man, outstanding show. UFC 299 main card definitely delivered. The fans definitely were into these fights. There wasn't a dull moment in a lot of these fights. It was outstanding. Great main card. That's all we're going to cover right now. I'm going to be right back with you for another video where we got tons to break down on the prelims. Outstanding matchups on the prelims. A ton of stuff to break down. And we're going to get into all of it. We got an action-packed week because we have to finish breaking down 299. We also have a tied to a Vasa card that we need to cover that goes down this Saturday. So there's a lot going on. We also have the Boogie Woman, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I got some things I want to say about her because I was a huge Joanna Jędrzejczyk fan again and again and again and again. Huge fan of her, so we got to cover a couple of things that she said, that she did throughout her career, which were outstanding. Great stuff. A lot of stuff to cover this week. So roll with your boy Matt. Plenty of content coming your way. In the meantime, let me know what you thought about some of these fights on the main card. What was your opinion of the win by the dog that is Dustin Poirier? What about Sean O'Malley going out there in the pink shorts and getting his win? Let me know what you think. What about y'all must have forgot about Piotr Jan? What about MVP? Let me know what you thought about this. What about that boy Jack Della? Let me know about everything that you thought about the main card, and I'll be right back with you with a prelims breakdown. So, outstanding, man. And I do want to thank you today for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA, and I'll check you next time. Peace.